Hello everyone, my name is Harshada and I'm a product manager at Visual Studio's debugging and profiling team. Welcome to my demo today. So in this demo today, I'm going to be sharing some of our core debugging features like hot reload, conditional breakpoints, default breakpoint groups, visualizers, inline return values, and external sources debugging. As well as I'm going to be also sharing some of our AI assisted experience such as exception assistance, conditional breakpoint and trace point suggestions, AI variable, and return value analysis. So without any further delay, let's get into the demo. Before I start my demo, I'm going to be using an open source app called ShareX for my demo today. It runs on the local and lets me take some screenshots and perform different screen capturing tasks on the device. So as you all know, debugging is not an easy task. There are many challenges that can take a lot of effort to resolve. And one such challenge is handling exceptions. So a lot of time exceptions can be resolved pretty quickly, but some exceptions takes more energy, efforts, and can add into your debugging frustration. But with Visual Studio's Copilot exception assistance, this whole process becomes much more easier and quicker. Let's see how. So as you can see, I'm already in debug mode. I'm going to continue my debugging here. And the first thing, if you notice here, is what I see is the exception helper. So I'm guessing this pop-up is not new for you guys. You get this whenever you get any exceptions in your code. This will give you an exception details and also provides you with some of the links which you can use for further investigation. Now, if you have Copilot with Visual Studio, you will also see this additional link called Ask Copilot. And as soon as I click on this link, Copilot will open a new chat window within the Visual Studio. So Debugger provides all the necessary references to Copilot to start an initial conversation. And Copilot will analyze this exception or exception details for you reusing that references. Sometimes it might also need some more references. Now, if you see here in this analysis done by Copilot, it's telling me why I'm having this exception. Looks like I haven't done my null references or null values handling correctly. And that is why I'm seeing this exception. In many scenarios like this one, it will also provide a code fix if it's applicable. Now, I have gone through this scenario a couple of times and I'm very well aware of this whole code. So I'm going to go ahead and accept this code. But if you're using Copilot or any other AI for the very first time in your application, I would suggest you do your own check to make sure the code is looking correct or not. So to apply this code or edit this code fix suggested by Copilot, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select this preview button. Sorry. And with this, you will see it inserts the code fix within my editor right here. And I can accept or cancel. I'm going to go ahead and accept this change. Close this. We have more real estate here. And you'll see my code has been edited. Now, the only thing I'm going to do here is continue my debugging. And my exception is fixed. Now, if you notice here, I did not start my debugging session again, or it did not even pause my debugging when my code was edited. The only thing I did was continue. And that is because the hot reload kicked into background, so I can seamlessly edit and continue even while debugging session is going on. Now, we talked about exceptions. There is one another feature which is a highly used feature in debugging. And like me, many of you might have started their debugging journey using that feature, and that is breakpoints. So there are many different types of breakpoints that are available in Visual Studio, such as these normal breakpoints or conditional breakpoints, trace points, temporary breakpoints, or even dependent breakpoints, or the combination of all of those. Now, my favorite of those all is actually conditional breakpoints. Let me disable this breakpoint so we can easily continue our debugging. Okay. All of those. So my favorite breakpoint of all of those is conditional breakpoint. And that is because with conditional breakpoint, I can actually do some condition-based breakpoint execution, I can decide when and when not my breakpoint can hit. So I'm in control of the execution of breakpoints. This is very helpful if you are dealing with loops and you just wanted to pause your application at certain loop condition, or if you just wanted to analyze or investigate a particular scenario. For example, in this case, when I was trying to launch this application previously, I noticed that it is throwing me an error at certain instances when it's trying to launch, that it's not able to find a local path. Now, the problem is that it's not happening every time. It's only happening in certain instances. So I started my investigation. I ended up this function called update personal path. Looks like from the name and the code here somewhere the path is set. But as I said, it's not happening. The error is not happening every time. So I don't want my application to pause at this breakpoint on line 463 every time. So what I can do is I can convert this to a conditional breakpoint. So I can decide when and when not this breakpoint can hit. You can go to settings. You can hover over it, go to settings, and then click this conditioned checkbox here. Now, conditional breakpoints are great, but sometimes coming up with those conditions is not always it's not easy. Also, if you're new with conditional breakpoints, having some suggestions for those conditions can also be really helpful. And that's where, again, Copilot can actually help you. So if you see here, after I click this checkbox, and if I place my cursor within this text box here, Copilot again has all the references to the code around here, and it will provide me with 3 possible expressions which might work in this scenario. So I'm going to go ahead and select the second one here. I think if the path is equal, it's just my hypothesis that if the path is equal already, it might be an issue. Now, this Copilot expression suggestions also works great with trace points. So if you don't know, again, trace points are something in Visual Studio which you can use to log your important information in the output window. So it's very similar to log.writeLine, but you don't have to remove that when you are actually pushing your code to release. So it's just like a breakpoint. So you can go to Actions and then click on and this cursor in this text box again, and it will give you some possible log messages which you can log in your output window. So again, I'm going to go here with the second one. And now I'm going to close my settings window here. And if you notice here, my breakpoint has been converted to a conditional breakpoint, which also has action associated with it. Now, I'm a very handy tip for you here. Now, when you have these complex breakpoints with conditions in action, and by mistake, if you do this, that means if you delete your breakpoint with advanced settings, so what you can do is you can actually use this undo button and bring back your breakpoint along with all the settings and actions you've already applied to that. And that is very handy, and you don't have to start from scratch. Now, as I said, breakpoint is one of our very highly used feature. I use breakpoints a lot too. I tend to place a lot of breakpoints if I'm investigating a code or even if I'm trying to learn more about the code. And what I end up having is this huge list of breakpoints in my breakpoint settings window, which is not always easy to navigate or understand what's happening. But recently, I started using something called breakpoint groups. Now, if you look at my breakpoint settings window now, it looks much better. It is more structured and hierarchically organized. And if you see here, it has these nice breakpoint groups created, so I can know what's happening and what's not. Now, if I'm doing some parallel investigation, I can actually enable or disable a whole set of breakpoints with just a single click. For example, I'm really not interested in any of the breakpoints in this non-demo part. So I'm going to go ahead and disable all those breakpoints in with just a single click. Now, creating a breakpoint group is very easy. You can actually do that using this new new menu and drop-down option called breakpoint group. And then you can name it and create a new breakpoint. And now moving a breakpoint to a group is more easier. You can just drag and drop to the breakpoint group you want to. You can also use a right-click context menu if you want. Now, there is another very handy tip I wanted to give you. If you already have existing breakpoint groups in your settings window, what you can do is you can right-click one of those or the one you want, and then do set as default breakpoint group. Once you create that, or once you do that, what will happen is that all the new breakpoints which you add now after this will get automatically added here. For example, let's add a breakpoint here on line 462, and you'll see it will automatically got added into this default breakpoint group. So this makes working around the breakpoints and starting with this breakpoint group structure much more easier. Now, other than exceptions and breakpoint, there is another scenario which is very, very common while you're debugging, and that is data inspection or variable inspection. So let's see a couple features around that. I'm going to continue my debugging here. Okay, so if you notice at this particular method or function here, it is actually creating a list of tasks that I can perform on this application, under this application. Now, I really wanted to make sure that all the variables here have right values. So instead of hovering over each and doing like that, or like checking like this, that can be time consuming as well. What I can do is I can hover over this object and launch this enumerable visualizer by clicking this magnifying glass. So if you don't know, again, there are many different types of visualizers available in Visual Studio, depending on the type of data you want or you have. There is string visualizers, HTML, dataset visualizer, an XML visualizer, and of course, an enumerable visualizer too. So with all these visualizers, you can sort your data, filter your data, and even export your data if you want to. Export your data if you want to. Now, this is a non-modal window here. So what that means is that you can have it floating like this or dock it like a breakpoint settings window if you want to. And the best part is you can still interact with the editor in the background. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and comment out this last item and continue, and you'll see a real-time change in your visualizers. And because it's non-modal, you can also use multiple visualizers at the same time to do some complex data visualization. Now, specifically with enumerable visualizer, you also have this option to write your own link query to do some custom filtration. Now, I have a very smaller data set here, but imagine if you have like thousands of rows, you can write your own link query and do some custom filtration as well. And in our upcoming preview, we also have IntelliSense coming up. So if you need for additional help to write your link queries, IntelliSense can help. And you also have option to do Ask Copilot. Now, I think I fixed my exception, so I should be able to launch my application correctly. So I'm going to continue and see if we can launch the application. Again, I'm going to disable these breakpoints so we don't stop here every single time. Okay, so looks like we were able to launch the application correctly. Now, I remember the last time when I was trying to take a screenshot, my screenshot wasn't looking correct. The width was little off, and I still have that bug in my application. So let's try to fix that. So what I'm going to do here is now I'm going to go to capture and try to capture my full screen here. So to do that, okay, and I'm going to continue debugging to this function. So if you notice, if you see here the capture rectangle, this is the function I think is calculating all the bounds or all the height and width of the rectangle screenshot, because my screen is a rectangle here. And so I'm going to continue again. And if you notice, it is actually returning null, which seems to be incorrect. And if you also notice that we are actually seeing this return value in line here as we are debugging. So this is the very latest feature we released in our latest preview. That is that you can actually see your return statement or return values in line as you're debugging. So you don't need to use extra variables just to track your return values. And the best part is that you can actually analyze your return values with Copilot again. So if you see this tooltip here, you can actually see your return values in line as you're debugging. So And if you hover over it, you will have the option to do Ask Copilot, which will again provide you some AI and insights on why you're seeing this particular value. I'm going to come back to the demo for this later. Now, normally when I see this unexpected return values, the first thing I go and do is I check all my variables to make sure they have right values or not. So I'm going to go to my locals here and see if I'm getting if all the variables have right values or not. Now, I see here X and Y. The Y is actually the width of my screen and width is 0, which seems incorrect again. Again, in a normal scenario, what I will do is I will go back to code, try to figure out what's going on. If I'm missing something, I might do some more step-by-step debugging to see if there is any wrong in my code. I might go do also some internet searching to figure out if what can be an issue. But now, because I have Copilot again in my Visual Studio, the only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hover over this variable and do this Ask Copilot to understand why I'm seeing this incorrect value. As soon as I do that, similar to the exception helper, it will open up a new chat window in the Visual Studio. Again, debugger will provide all the necessary references to start the initial conversation or analysis of this particular value. So the return value analysis, Ask Copilot, which we saw, works exactly the same way as variable analysis as well. In case if you see any error codes in your locals, watch windows, you can also analyze that. This also works with the data tips as well. Now, if you come here in the Copilot chat, you will see that it is actually giving me a good insights on why I'm seeing this particular incorrect value. And it's actually asking me to go and provide more implementation detail about the screen-bound demo. So this is one of those scenarios where even with the initial references, Copilot might need additional reference. And so in short, like each of your conversation with Copilot in Visual Studio will be different. Sometimes it might need additional reference, sometimes it might not. So I'm going to go ahead and click this. Okay. And so in normal scenarios, when I click on any of these links, it should take me to that particular method or at least open a search box. It's not happening right now. So let's try to go there manually. Okay, this looks like this is the one. So I'm going to go right click and go to definition. And looks like this is the method it's talking about. So I'm going to go and fix this issue in a little lazy way today. So the only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select the code here and then hash reference it to Copilot. I'm just going to do hash and it will have all my selection already. And then just going to tell us, give a little vague prompt. So this is the code, give me a fix. And let's see if Copilot will use my vague prompt and give me a fix for this. So with this additional reference, it's again providing some insights and looks like it is actually also giving me a code fix. And I'm guessing the way I was calculating my rectangular bounds is not right. I have something complex thing going here while it's a pretty simple return statement here. So what I'm going to do here is again accept this change because I am very well aware of this code. I have already checked if it's right or if it looks right or not. I'm gonna accept it. And looks like it has edited in my editor here. I'm gonna continue. And let's try to take a screenshot again. Continue. And I was able to take a full screenshot of my screen. So it looks like we were able to fix that issue with Copilot's help. Now, there are a couple more things which I wanted to show you, but for that, I would need to start a new debugging session. So I'm going to pause here and start a new debugging session, which might take a couple seconds. So it looks like my debug session has started again. So the thing I wanted to show you guys is around this function again, where we saw the IEnumerable visualizer. But if you remember, I had a couple of breakpoints in the start, in the CLI manager where we saw the exception. I also have a couple more breakpoints in program.cs where we saw conditional breakpoints here. Now, I wanted to fast forward my debugging so I can show you the thing which I wanted to show you instead of hitting all these breakpoints, but I still want to keep those breakpoints because for my other demo again. So what I can do here is I can hover over this particular cursor location where I'm interested. Once you hover over there, you will see this run to execution here. I'm going to click shift as doing that, and then I will see force run to execution here. I'm just going to click it. And what it will do is it will run the debugger to this cursor location, but it will skip all my breakpoints until this location. And it might also, and it will also skip any first class exception that might happen. So this is a very easy way to fast forward your debugging. This is called force run to cursor. This is a very easy way to fast forward your debugging in case if you wanted to debug just a specific part of your code and you wanted to skip certain area for certain scenario. Now you can also do that using the right click context menu. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is something that could be really tricky, and that is external sources debugging. So when you have your code, which is referenced from external libraries, if you have any code in your application which is referenced from external libraries or your partner team libraries or even NuGet packages, and if you're investigating an issue related to that, it becomes really tricky if you don't have a visibility for the code associated with those libraries or NuGet packages. What you might have to do is you have to go and manually load the symbols or decompile those sources using the modules window. But with Visual Studio's auto decompilation, this process becomes very easy as well. Now, if you see here in my call stack, I have this Newton sub JSON package, which I might have referenced somewhere in the code. Now, imagine if I want to investigate an issue which is related to this. The only thing I have to do is I'm going to double click here, and Visual Studio Debugger will actually auto decompile its sources, and it will show me in the editor. So I'm showing it to you from the call stack, but it will auto decompile as needed. So if you do peak definition, or if you just go to that particular function and go to definition, that should work as well. I'm just showing it from the call stack. And not just this, you can see the code here in the editor. You also have this external sources node within the Visual Studio where you can browse through all the files or all the other libraries which you have referenced. And then you can actually browse through them, inspect variables or data, and even place breakpoints and debug through them as you're debugging your own code. So external sources debugging becomes very, very easy with this auto decompilation. And the best part is this exact scenario works and is supported in profiling as well. So if you're profiling and if you have a referenced code or external reference code, you can have this exact same experience. So you can actually easily find performance bottlenecks if they are related to your external referenced libraries. Now, that's all I had today for the demo. I'm going to go back to my presentation again. So thank you again for joining. If you have any suggestions or feedback to us or any of the debugger features, you can always go on our developer community side and then let us know that. You can also follow our Visual Studio blog. And if you're still on Twitter or X, you can actually follow our dedicated Twitter account for Debugger, where we frequently post all of our feature updates as well as some tips and tricks. That's all I have. Thank you again for joining. I'll be here for any more questions.